Hello and welcome to Lily's Library. So today we're going to be talking about the 12 books I want to read in the 12 months of 2026. So I did a version of this at the end of last year. I picked out 12 books I wanted to read throughout the 12 months of 2025, and it really didn't go as good as I hoped, but I would like to try again for 2026. So I've tried to kind of think about some books differently. There will be some books that will be repeats. So if you did watch that video, you'll see there is a few books on that list that are returning this year because they're ones that have been on my TBRs for ages now, for like multiple years for some of them, and I just need to read them. So we're going to start with the 4 books that were on the 2025 list, and I'm just going to go down the stack that I have piled in front of me. So the first one I want to try and read is Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. I'd like to read this duology in general in 2026, but I only own the first book, so I'm picking out this. I'm really excited to read this. This is something I really had hoped that I'd read in 2025, but I just never was finding myself in the right mood for it, so I will be trying again in 2026. But this is a dystopian set in a futuristic version of America. I believe the book actually starts in 2025, so it'll be interesting to see. I don't really know too much more about it besides that, but rather than other than the fact that America is chaos. I don't really know too much more about it besides that. I've heard lots of great reviews and people say that this is a very important and timely book. So I'm really intrigued by it. And a friend on TikTok is also wanting to read this duology. So I think we're going to try and buddy read the 2 books together. I just need to track down a copy of book 2 and then we will get into that as soon as we can. Next on my list is The City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. This is Shannon Chakraborty, the author of The Adventures of Amina El-Sarafi, which I absolutely adored and loved. And the second book is coming out in 2026 as well. So I would like to actually finally start this trilogy. I think it's a trilogy. A lot of people I know on TikTok and I'm friends with have told me I would absolutely love this series, and genuinely surprised that I have yet to read it. So I would really like to get to this. I don't know too much about it again. I know this is set in a kind of steampunk version of Cairo, and it's got to do with magic as well, and like jinn and spirits, and it's about this young girl who wishes for her life to be filled with wonder or wishes to get out of this place, but something happens when that wish is actually granted and it throws her life into turmoil. That's kind of my understanding. I don't know how correct I am, but I would like to at least read the first book of this one and see how we go. I've also got a bind up of 3 books on here which I would like to spend the whole year reading, and that is The Lord of the Rings. This is by J.R.R. Tolkien, obviously. I feel like I don't really need to say what The Lord of the Rings is. I absolutely love these movies, and I have read The Hobbit. I read it for the first time a few years ago, but I've been putting off reading this trilogy for some reason. I think the fact that I have this bind up of all 3 books is just so intimidating to me that I might try and start looking through some secondhand bookshops and op shops to see if I can find a matching set of the 3 books themselves. So yeah, we'll see how we go. I would really like to read this. My goal is to read maybe 1 book every quarter of the year or every third of the year, and we'll just see how we go from there and see if I can just like pace myself with these books. Then the final book that is a carryover from last year's list is Pachinko. This is by Min-Jin Lee. I actually started reading this. I don't know if I kept my bookmark in where I got up to. I did not, but it was just kind of not what I was really feeling at the moment, and when I did try to pick it up, I'm not really a major historical fiction fan. There have been historical fiction books that I do enjoy, and I do have quite a few I'd like to read. So I would like to start with this one, and if I don't read it this year, I think I'm honestly just gonna have to unhaul it because I don't see myself ever really gravitating towards this book again. I would really like to give it a go and give it a fair shot, so I'm gonna pick a month to put this on and I will stick to it and try and just read it throughout the entire month. Even if this ends up becoming a book that I read over a few months, I'll see how I go. If I'm really struggling and I just can't do it, I might just watch the TV show and unhaul it. But in this book, we follow a young girl who is growing up in a part of Korea that has been occupied by Japan, and she ends up becoming pregnant by this married Yakuza man, and that's obviously got a lot of bad connotations, bad things that mean it'll happen. And this guy, he's a Christian minister. He offers her a chance of salvation through a new life in Japan to be his wife. And we follow her as I guess she moves there. I did read the first few chapters where it follows like her family and her father and everything. And I did really struggle with the chapters when we got to her, just because some of the things the kids said to her and the way that like people treat each other in this book is really heavy. But like obviously the historical connotations of this book and the time period it's set in is obviously going to be very heavy. But I would like to try again and actually read it. I think, like I said, it's going to be one I do try and take pretty slowly. Okay, so the next books I want to talk about are some books that are in series that I would like to continue and read more of in 2026. One is a series I need to continue. The other one is a series that I need to catch up on, and that is basically just reading the book that came out in 2025 that I didn't get to. And so I'm going to start with that one, and that one is Oathbound by Tracy Deonn. I'm uncertain if I'm going to be rereading Legendborn and Bloodmarked before I get to this. I might try and read the first few chapters and see how I go, and if I am struggling, I will pick up the other two and reread them. This is a series I really love. It's a series I've been really nervous to continue, especially about that because of the ending of Bloodmarked. So I'll see how we go. I just love this series so much, but I've been so nervous and intimidated by this book. But these are Arthurian reimaginings and retellings. They're really unique the way it's done, and I absolutely love the way it discusses that myth and its place in American history specifically as well. So I'm very intrigued to get to this one, and I absolutely love all of these characters. But I think just because there was such a decent gap between me reading Bloodmarked and then Oathbound coming out, I kind of just struggled to pick it up again. I find that happening to myself a bit with series when I am waiting for new releases and that series to continue on. So we'll see how we go, but I'm going to try and read this early in the year so that if I do need to reread Legendborn and Bloodmarked, then I have time to reread those books, because they're not that short books either, so we'll see how we go. But the next book on my list is The Battle Drum by Sarah El-Arifi. I read The Final Strife last year, and I still remember a decent amount of it, and I still remember how it ended and how intrigued I was to continue it, but for some reason I just haven't picked this book up. So I think I will just quickly reread the last little bit of The Final Strife, like read the last, like the epilogue, and then I'm going to dive straight into this, and I'm going to order myself a copy of The Ending Fire, which is the third and final book in this trilogy. These are really interesting fantasy books. They're set in a world where the color of your blood kind of determines your place in the world. You've got ghostings, who are the bottom of the food chain. They are basically servants and everything. And because of the history and their history specifically, the ruling class has always treated them very poorly. A lot of them don't have their hands and don't have their tongues because of the treatment that is carried out against them. So that's one of the people we follow. We've also got the Blue Bloods and the Red Bloods. They are like the people that, I don't remember the way it goes. I need to double check. But one of them is obviously the higher ruling class. There are a lot of the politicians. There are a lot of the governments. There are a lot of the wealthy, the influential people. And then you've also got the working class, who are just really treated poorly as well. I did really love the characters. I love that it's a very queer normative world, and we've got a lot of queer characters as well. So I'd really like to continue this trilogy, as intimidated by it as I am. So we are halfway through the stack now. I've got two thick fantasy books on this TBR as well. The first one is, again, a new release that I haven't had a chance to get to, so I'm going to save it for 2026, and that is The Isle in the Silver Sea. This is by Tasha Suri, who is the author of the Burning Kingdoms trilogy. That's the ones that start with like the Jasmine Throne, which is a series I need to continue as well. But this is her newest book. This is a standalone fantasy. I don't know if it's strictly a romantasy or if it's a fantasy with romance. The labelings of those are always kind of different, but in this we follow a witch and a knight who I believe are kind of always destined to cross paths in this book and this universe. There is actually a book called The Witch and the Knight that plays a very big role in everything that happens in this world, and actually this edition, which is the Illumicrate one, has that book as like the naked hardcover, which I find really cool. And I don't know too much more about it than that. I just know this has got a lot of sapphic yearning. I do love the Lady Knight trope that's been going on recently. So this will be my first Lady Knight book in quite a while, so I am very excited to get to this one. Then I've got another Illumicrate edition and another new release of 2025, and that is A Song of Legends Lost. This is by M.H. Allende, and this is something I've been wanting to read for ages. I followed the author on TikTok, we're mutuals, and as soon as I saw her talking about this book, I knew it was something I needed to read. I just did not expect it to be this long and chunky, so it's been intimidating me ever since. But in all honesty, I feel like I've forgotten a lot about what this book is, but again, a lot of mutuals that I trust their opinions of books and trust them with my life, they absolutely loved this book and hype it up all the time, so it is something I do really need to get to. And the sequel comes out in 2026, I think like midway through the year, maybe around May to July time, so I'm going to try and read this before then so I can read them back to back. I've got another fantasy series. This is book one in a duology that's been popping off on TikTok lately and I've had a lot of FOMO with, and I finally managed to track down a copy, and that is The Jasad Heir. This is by Sarah Hashem, and I've heard really interesting things about this. Just like everyone loves it at the moment, so I'm really intrigued. I've heard that the relationship and the dynamic is really interesting and that a lot of people just love this duology and that it's amazing, but I honestly don't remember what it's about. But all I know is this is an Egyptian inspired fantasy and there's magical powers and magical abilities, and I believe the male love interest, he can't touch the female love interest without like hurting her or hurting himself, something like that. It's got that kind of dynamic, which kind of reminds me of Shatter Me, but I've heard really good things about it, so I do really want to give this a go, and if I love it, I will definitely pick up the sequel. The next book is a horror. This is another new release that came out in 2025 that was really difficult to track down in Australia, and that is The Buffalo Hunter, Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones. I've read 2 of his other books and really enjoyed them both, especially The Only Good Indians. That book was just incredible, and this is one I've been dying to read for ages. My sister actually got this for me as a Christmas present, and I know I've got this before Christmas, but she let me have it early because it was getting sent to me. But I'm really intrigued by this. I believe this is about vampire hunters. Yeah, it's a chilling reinvention of vampire lore from the master of horror, and that's kind of all I want to know about it. I don't really want to read too much more into the plot than that. This year, like 2025, has really been the year of the vampire, I feel like, and like monsters making such a big resurgence in media, which I really love. Like we had Nosferatu that came out at the tail end of 2024, and that kind of spurred it into 2025. We also had Sinners, which was incredible, and I found the aspect of the indigenous vampire hunters to be really interesting in Sinners and something I wish was explored more. So I feel like this will be a good way to kind of go into that. And again, this has just had so many hyped up, amazing reviews that I really, really want to get to it soon. So this is going to be one of my priority reads for next year. Next on my list is a classic. I really want to try and get into reading more classics just because I keep buying so many of them, and it's kind of gone a lot better in the last 2 months of this year. So I'm hoping I can continue that into 2026. And the classic that I've chosen for my TBR is Rebecca. This is by Daphne du Maurier. This is one that I've heard a lot of people love as well. I think this is kind of a more modern or newer classic. I don't think it's as old as other ones. Yep, this was published in like the I think this was published in like the 1930s. And I believe this is Gothic, and a lot of people love it, and Gothic fiction is one of my favorite things, especially Gothic classics. I just love the vibes of it all. So this is one I'm definitely going to be wanting to get to. And again, something I've heard a lot of mutuals say they think I would really enjoy it. So it is going on my TBR. Then the final book is by an author I've been meaning to read more of for ages. I have quite a few of her books, but have still only read the one, and that is Hong Kong. So I would like to try and get to Human Acts. This is one that I've always wanted to read ever since I heard about it. Hong Kong also won the Nobel Prize for Literature this year. So I think this is finally my sign and my time to pick this book up. This was one I actually picked up in Korea. I don't know exactly what this is about. I know it is about a sort of violent uprising between students and among students, and that it's got a lot of hate in Korea, but that happens with a lot of books. So I'm intrigued to see how this is, and it seems really interesting. And again, it's a pretty short book, so I feel like out of all the books on my TBR, this is definitely going to be the most manageable, but I wanted something a bit different on my TBR. I've obviously got Pachinko, and I said I'm not really a fan of historical fiction, and this is kind of historical fiction, but not really. It's more modern stuff. So I'm very intrigued to see how I go with this one, but I thought this, the classic, and also Pachinko would be kind of good books to break up these more fantastical books that I've got on my TBR, like the fantasy, the horror, the dystopian. So this one is going on my TBR for the year. Now, with all these books, I don't really know how I'm going to go about deciding between them each month. I don't know if I'm going to structure it out and like pre-plan the year with these books, or if I'll do like a drawing cards thing and like write them all on a piece of paper and pull it out of a jar, or whether I'll just go with the vibe I'm feeling for that month. But I'll figure it out when the time comes. Maybe you'll see in my January TBR what I ended up deciding on, but I'm really excited for all of these books. Some I am a bit nervous about just because they're a bit outside of my usual genre choices, but I think it's a good way to test my reading and to like kind of force myself to branch out. But yeah, that is it. Let me know if you have read any of these books and what your thoughts and feelings were of them, or if there's any books you are dying to read in 2026. But make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all next time. Goodbye.